family, and welcome to another episode of the Bad Dinner Guest Bible Study. I am Kev. I'm here with our co-host as always, RJ. RJ.
Hello, everybody. How's it going? Joke's on you. You can't answer. Everybody loses.
And, well, tonight we are on Genesis 1, Genesis 1. I did that. See, I did it.
I think I screwed us all up with the titling.
You got me got me right away on the onset here. We are on Genesis chapter 4, reading from the King James Version. This will be the Cain and Abel story. So another one everyone's relatively familiar with, but we'll see what we can find. I have an interesting, at least theory that I've heard that I eventually will want to throw out. It involves Cain and Abel.
Okay.
That a little out there. I brought some extra tinfoil from the kitchen.
Yes.
So, guys, be prepared for that. I say that as a way to segue into our friendly reminder that in our very first episode, we took about 10 to 15 minutes to preface this entire thing. So, you will get some satire. You will get some jokes. You will get some things you maybe aren't used to hearing. But the idea is to look at this as an objective Bible study, okay? So, we're here just as two grown men who haven't read the Bible in a long time, trying to read it now, and just asking really whatever question happens to come in mind. So take it for what it is. RJ, do you have anything you want to add?
I don't know that I like to be referred to as a grown man. I haven't defined my gender publicly yet, but that's fine. Also, we'll put the link to that first video in the SoundCloud and the YouTube descriptions, so you guys can get caught up on exactly what we're doing here when you get really upset because I accidentally curse or make a really bad, distasteful joke. So check that one out if you get offended. We'd appreciate it. Leave us a comment if you know what we're talking about and we don't.
I want to just throw one more thing in there to those of you listening on SoundCloud. If you want to read along with us and make sure that we aren't just completely full of it, you can follow the link to our YouTube where we screen share the King James Version, which we are reading from. And to those, just for further legitimacy, we actually do have a printed King James Version here with us to sort of fact check the internet and make sure there are no typos.
That says Quran.
Whoops. What's that doing down here?
Shit. I'm going to start us reading here, I guess, if you're good and I'm good.
Yeah, I'm ready for you.
Cool. So Genesis 4. And Adam knew Eve his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord. And she said again, bare his brother Abel. And Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. And in process of time it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto the Lord. And Abel he also brought of the firstlings of his flock and of the fat thereof, and the Lord had respect unto Abel and to his offering. But unto Cain and to his offering he had not respect, and Cain was very wroth, and his countenance? And his countenance fell. I apologize, folks. Anything to there? Or do you want me to keep going?
Well, I think we'll have to kind of see where it goes, because he's about to ask Cain why he's upset.
I got you.
I want to just say one thing, not related to any theology or philosophy at all. I really want to go back to that phrase of, like, instead of saying I got laid last night, saying something like, oh yeah, I knew her. Like, I kind of like that. I think that's a very classy way of saying that. I really want to bring that back.
Yeah, that's knew them biblically. I've heard that one used, but I knew her. Of course you knew her. She's your stepsister. What? Kevin. It's the Old Testament, folks. I didn't say it. I also, out of the two jobs, if you had to be the tiller of the ground or the one that raised sheep, which would have you wanted?
I would prefer the tiller of the ground. I think that the way that I was created, I think I would be more suited to
digging and planting.
Lead the animals.
Okay, I feel you.
I prefer to work with my hands, but I don't think I have a green thumb.
Oh, so you wouldn't want to be the tiller. You would want to be
I would prefer.
No,
I would prefer. Yeah, personally, if I had my choice, I would do manual labor all day long, and people would leave me alone.
Okay.
But my skill set seems to be interaction, and in a situation where it's like planting, working the ground, or herding some some animals, I think I would probably end up stuck doing that job. So I have my preference, but I understand my reality.
I like it. So we are at what, 6 there? Yeah. And the Lord said unto Cain, Why art thou wroth? And why is thy countenance fallen? If thou doesn't well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou doesn't not well, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. And Cain talked with Abel his brother, and it came to pass, when they were in the field, that Cain rose up against Abel his brother, and slew him. And the Lord said unto Cain, Where is Abel thy brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? And he said, What hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground.
I think we should probably take a second here to sort of, I guess, discuss this. This was very interesting, because up until, I never really understood this story growing up when it was taught to me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the way I remember it is Cain was jealous of Abel being favored in God's eyes, and he killed Abel for that reason. And, and that's what was up. And I'm seeing that here as we read it. So, but it just seems like, again, I never, just as a person, you know, I can relate to jealousy, absolutely. Never so much to the point that I would kill over it. It made me always wonder. I mean, and again, here's a situation like when we talk about the creation, how it was done in 31, versus here's the build up to. So, but we have what, 10 verses from Cain and Abel being born to Cain slaying Abel. Like, there is no context to the story whatsoever.
None whatsoever.
And that's the part
there's
that's
context. They talked. They talked about it. He was disenfranchised, and then he talked to his brother, and then he killed him. What are you missing there?
Yeah, exactly. So it's all right there for you, nice and wrapped up pretty in a box. And that's sort of the issue that I have with it, is just, well, I feel like there has to be a lot more to this story if this is a real story. Why is so much of it glossed over? I understand we're just setting the backdrop here. I mean, if you're looking at this as a writer, or, you know, if you were looking at the Bible and you were trying to edit it, like, let's say you, for fun, to work on your skills, just decided, like, hey, you know, I'll edit the Bible as if it were a work of fiction, like, or, you know, let's consider the Bible to be, for a second, like Homer's Odyssey. You know, like, in the beginning, they're still telling you, either way, they're still telling you a story, and so in the beginning they are setting the backdrop. We've talked about this throughout the first couple chapters of, there's a reason, potentially, that this was sort of, the beginning is glanced over. They're trying to get you up to speed to the here and now of when this book was written. Of course, I don't mean here and now 2016. I mean that Old Testament here and now.
Yeah. Also showing the origin of sin, I think, is a large theme through this. So they definitely want to hit those points. So maybe that's why we're seeing those points brought forth with no context. The one thing we keep seeing already, and if my knowledge base of the Bible goes back even a little bit, I think we're going to keep seeing, is God keeps giving them the chance to, like, tell him the truth. And then he's like, actually, I already knew the truth, and you lied to me just now. Because in the garden, like, he's looking for them and then asks what they did. But if he's omniscient, or did I use the right word there? Either way, if he knows everything before it happens, after it happens, and while it's happening, then he already knows what's going on. So in that context, when he says, ask him where his brother is, he already knows. And I don't know if we've gotten forth to see if he, like, finds out the real story there, but that's an interesting theme that keeps coming through there, is that chance to just come clean from the beginning, and they lie from the beginning.
Right, which kind of plays into what you were saying. Yeah, they're kind of introducing a lot of sins in this portion of the story, and I'll be interested to see if I'm assuming there's going to be more than 3, but it would be interesting if there was that parallel.
3 sins?
To the parallel to Jesus in the New Testament being denied 3 times.
Okay.
Who was that? Peter? Can you correct me on that?
That denied him? So Judas sold him out.
Mm-hmm.
Who denied him?
I believe it was Peter.
Okay. I don't remember.
I may be wrong. We'll get there eventually. And feel free to let us know and yell at us and send us hate emails.
Yeah, we still have a lot of rules.
Could have been Paul. I might, it's tough.
How many of the 12 disciples do you know off the top of your head?
Ooh. Uh-oh. This might hurt our viewership right here. What do we got? Peter, Paul, Mark, John, Luke, Judas. I wasn't
Did you get
counting.
Luke?
I did say Luke. Peter, Paul, Mark, John, Luke, Judas. Yeah, that was 7.
Is it Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John that are the 4 Gospels? So you missed Luke. Jesus, I don't know these.
Yeah.
We're going to find out,
We're going to find out. Stick with us. We'll get there. But yeah, so we were at the part where God had said, yeah, I gotcha. You were lying. I can hear the blood cry from the ground.
Yeah.
And so here I can step in here momentarily.
We're 11?
Genesis chapter 4 verse 11. And now art thou cursed from the earth, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth. And Cain said unto the Lord, my punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid, and I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. And it shall come to pass that every one that findeth me shall slay me. All right, so I'm going to pause here because I as I was reading, I had another thought from back to the beginning of this story that I kind of wanted to talk to you about before we get too far away from the here and the now. And it was, why in the first place was God unhappy with what Cain gave him? We kind of got right into how Cain felt about that and what he did, but I kind of wanted to stop and think about that. It doesn't do a lot to tell you even why God was unhappy.
No.
Like, as far as like trying to teach a lesson here, it doesn't tell you like what Cain did as far as tilling the land and making food that made God unhappy, why he didn't respect it. It just says that he doesn't respect it. And I think, again, that so much would be key to this story, because now we're also seeing that Cain is now banished to just roam the earth, which is sort of weird. Again, the word choices here, it says he's going to be a fugitive, a vagabond, and anyone who sees him shall slay him, which is very interesting.
So in verse 14 there, I was having a little bit of an issue there trying to figure out if that was Cain still talking or if that was the Lord talking. Because in 15 it says, and the Lord, and in 13 it says, and Cain said. But in 14, it doesn't really give any context. I guess I was just assuming Cain said it at first. So is it saying in 14 that he's banished from the garden and that, like, him and God will never have a relationship again because he had sinned?
Well, can we scroll back up to 11? Because I want to see,
Turn it up to
now
11.
thou art cursed from the earth. And that's what I thought. That was the part.
Yeah.
It's very vague here. It doesn't really tell you, because obviously he wasn't shot out into space. So he wasn't banished from the earth. It's saying he'll be cursed from the earth, but he says, thou hast driven me out this day, from the face of the earth. From thy face shall I be hid, and I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. And it shall come to pass that every one that findeth me shall slay me. Does that not sound like a riddle to you somehow? Like it feels to me, honestly, that something is being said here beneath the open layer, as far as, like, it's just weird. It's sounding like he's been hidden from the earth but then made to walk the earth, but everyone that find me shall slay me. That's the part where I'm like, is this Cain talking or the Sphinx? Are we in a labyrinth here for a second? It's just interesting the way that whole verse is phrased.
It doesn't say Eden. It doesn't say from the garden. It says earth, that he was basically banished from the earth. And then it says he'll be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. Not on the earth, but in it. That's just weird. So we're at 15?
Yes.
Okay. And the Lord said unto him, therefore whosoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. So I guess he's probably on earth by this manner here, we're guessing. And that God's protecting him from being murdered, at least. That's at least what I'm getting from that.
Not letting him have the easy way out.
I guess that's true, too. And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived, and bare Enoch. And he builded a city, and called the name of the city after the name of his son, Enoch. It says builded, guys. That's not me being a southerner. That's really what it says. Check us out on YouTube. 18. And unto Enoch was born Irad. And Irad begat Mehezuel. How would you pronounce that? And Mehezuel begat Methuselah. And Methuselah begat Lamech. And Lamech took unto him 2 wives. The name of the one was Ada, and the name of the other was Zillah. Where are all these ladies coming from?
I'm glad you did that.
His brother's dead.
We needed to, at the very least, make some kind of pause, because this is another one of those spots. And again, this may have been done on purpose. They just the next few verses are just more. They just spit out more names of wives and stuff. But you just pointed out a very valid point. Where did these people come from?
Yeah. No joke. It literally went from God created 2 people and they had 2 sons to, hey, these are all the other people that these people made. And were they all banging Eve? Is that what we're supposed to surmise? Because he's banished from Eden. So you can't even really, you can joke about that, but you can't surmise that because he couldn't be sneaking off into Eden and banging Eve. There's what is that creature that he put in Eve? Oh, Adam and Eve are also banished from Eden, though.
Yeah, but still, so who else was created? Or was this a situation, did a female angel come down to earth and Cain was just all up in it several times? Because how else, because how does, let's follow the line here. So there was Enoch and Irad and and onto Enoch was born Irad begat Mehujael begat Methuselah, Lamech. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 generations down the line, Lamech took unto him 2 wives.
There's enough lady friends out there for him to have 2. There's a plethora of women out there. He got 2 of them.
Unless the other thing that we can't just, we have to acknowledge it as a possibility. And onto Enoch, and that's weird. So is it first of all, it doesn't even tell you who Cain's wife is. And Cain knew his wife and she conceived. Where did she come from? Again, where did she come from in the first place? But once, even if we could figure her out, then we could think, okay, well, maybe, as gross as this sounds, maybe Enoch's child came from him being old enough to knock up his mom. And then once Irad was born, one of the other males in the family, maybe Irad's a girl. That's the thing, you can't really tell with these names, who is a male and who is a female. So
wasn't Methuselah a chick?
I think so, but
that's not Methuselah. That's Methuselah.
They're both in there. They're right, one after another. So yeah, but it all starts with where did Cain's wife come from, and I cannot remember at any point being taught about that, and it just seems like something that got glossed over. Like, oh, that doesn't really. How did we get from 2? Where does it tell us? We may want to go back through the first 3 chapters on our own time to just double check and make sure that we aren't missing something here.
Yeah.
It is possible. I mean, we take a couple of days in between reads. That's one of the downsides to that, is that it's not always fresh. So, but I for one am not remembering anything about other people outside of Adam and Eve and then their 2 sons. So that is a big thing here. Where did all these people come from? So now I guess back to more listing of names from.
So we are at 19? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Lamech took unto him 2 wives. The name of the one was Ada, and the name of the other was Zillah. And Ada bare Jabal. He was the father of such as dwell in tents, and such as have cattle. And his brother's name was Jabal. He was the father of all such as handle harp and organ. And Zillah, she also bare Tabalcain, an instructor of every artifact. What is that?
Artificer?
Artificer in brass and iron. And the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. What a beautiful language.
I like Tubal Cain. That's a pretty cool name.
And Lamech said unto his wives, Ada and Zillah, Hear my voice, ye wives of Lamech. Hearken unto my speech, for I have slain a man to my wounding, and a young man to my hurt. If Cain shall be avenged sevenfold, truly Lamech 70 and sevenfold. And Adam knew his wife again, and she bare a son, and called his name Seth. For God said, She hath appointed me another seed instead of Abel, whom Cain slew. And to Seth, to him also there was born a son, and he called his name Enos. Then began men to call upon the name of the Lord.
So I want to pause again because that's the end right there?
Real short chapter.
Whom did Seth get his child from?
These women just don't matter.
And to him also was born a son.
I don't, maybe they had some daughters and we're not hearing about them. All I know is no matter what, somewhere way down the line there had to have been some inbreeding, whether you believe in evolution or whatever. So it's not that hard for me to guess there was some cousin knowing going on. But
unless they are trying to suggest that the only other thing I could think of is that they're suggesting that maybe that not every human on this planet was created by our God. That's the only other thing I could by their God. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like what if that was the original interpretation of, because I can't it's the only thing I can think of. Where else did these people come from? Unless at the time they were saying, like, let's say, for instance, that was just supposed to be, the Jewish God at the time. That's what we're saying. Well, this is where the Jewish people, have come from. We were created by God. It came down, and there happened to be other, whatever, maybe other. I don't know what that theory would entail, but that's one of the only arguments that my mind can even conceive right now is either that or more people were created afterwards, or like you said, it's all incest. Like, that was another thing that bothered me about Christianity as a child. The whole concept of, well, we all came from Adam and Eve, right? So we're all family. Just like, well, how? How did we actually become such an intelligent creature? We have seen, faith aside, we have seen a number of occasions the effect of incest on an inbreeding.
Yeah,
we've seen what happens with the. Yeah.
No, not even like being sarcastic. No, I definitely went to school with the result of that, and it's not pretty. But as we know, sometimes it turns out just fine, and you see it with animals. Sometimes it don't work out, sometimes it does, depends on how far apart they were. These people weren't that far enough apart. But I definitely get what you're saying. Yeah, or maybe it's just more the patriarchy keeping women out of the Bible, just to show that they weren't important figures. Because, patriarchy. Or, I get down on some, ancient aliens kind of theories. I've never actually watched, the entire series, but I get the gist of what they're saying. Aliens came down here and messed with some stuff, and either way. So, say, there's definitely, what humans are as a species, and then there's what's, the other strong species that almost Neanderthals.
Yeah.
So, we woke up, Neanderthals didn't. Let's just say that. These people are just going out and banging Neanderthals and making smart kids. Now that they're not in the garden. Or aliens set up this garden that would, nurture growth, like a petri dish, and created these woke individuals, and then was like, hey, you're too woke. You can go out there and do your thing. And just bang all these half-monkey people.
Need to stay woke.
Yeah. But that's my big tinfoil. I don't know. It's just weird.
It's interesting. There's got to be something to it. I mean, it can't. The way it's been given, to just take it as it is, you have to say, okay, there's something is missing here. I don't know how you read it as it is and just say, oh yeah, everything's cool here.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't. Everything's covered to me. I don't know what you two are talking about.
Yeah. I frankly don't know what they're talking about, though. I wish I did. But definitely, if you guys either break out your Bibles, go to a website, read over this. It's a real short chapter. I mean, we've only been on air for 24 minutes, and we covered that entire chapter.
We might have to double down and get what.
I'm not against it, that's for sure. If you're wanting to do an episode 2 on it tonight for Genesis 5, definitely not against it. But that is a short chapter, and it tells us basically nothing. And I mean, a chapter is supposed to set something up, and then the new chapter begins with that knowledge, right? So all the old knowledge becomes assumed knowledge. So it looks like they're just setting up basically the next step in where we're at. So the step they're leaving us out on is Seth and him having a son. named Enos. And at that moment, after he had that son, began men to call upon the name of the Lord. Is Enos the character that I hear about being referred to as maybe the first coming of Christ? Or Seth?
We should look into that.
It's interesting to me that this character is born, and suddenly men, so all of these people that are now on the earth, are calling upon the name of the Lord at that moment. So it's kind of the same thing as when Jesus is getting planted in there and stuff, and when he's born and people start waking up. You know what I mean? So it's just an interesting little thing going on there. I don't know what it turns into, but
that is interesting. And there was another character that I was interested in, that I don't know how much how familiar you are with this, but the idea of, what was it, the Hidden Sea Scrolls and the Book of Enoch.
Okay, I've heard of that.
I was wondering when I heard that name, as far as one of Cable's ancestors, I began to wonder, like, is that the same Enoch that allegedly wrote a book of the Bible that was left out of the Bible? And that is one that I think would be very interesting if we choose to do some sort of tag along. I've wanted to sort of interject certain companion episodes along with this series. That would be one where, to sort of some of these theories that we introduce, like say the ancient aliens one, I want us to maybe start adding some of these just episodes just more directed towards that, to have that as a reference. Because we are going to be continue to throw a lot of theories out there. And that is one I personally really want to get into, because I want to see where it potentially could have fit while we're doing this Old Testament. The Book of Enoch is something I think I'm going to look into.
I would like to just do the Book of Enoch while we're doing it, and maybe we should do it while we're setting up these like really early on books of the Bible, just to get it out there. Because like some of the conspiracy stuff, I kind of wanted to wait till we were done with the Old Testament, just so I had a little bit more knowledge on it. Because again, I didn't really watch the shows. I just kind of, I browse some conspiracy forums here and there, and so I would kind of like to see the context set all together, and then be able to play it in there, rather than maybe getting through Genesis and doing it, and then Exodus completely undoing whatever it is I thought was going on in comparison. But I would definitely like to get into Enoch soon. That'd be cool.
Yeah,
especially since it was left out.
Yeah, I think the Book of Enoch, we should really check that out. But that whole, and I want to check out this Seth thing too. This is the first I've ever heard of that being the parallel. I've wanted to look for an Old Testament parallel to Jesus, and see how many, if any, there are, just to. And that's another theory that we've mentioned, the idea that Jesus was potentially a created fictional character for the New Testament.
Yeah.
And even certain theories that I've heard about who maybe was behind creating that. So again, that's for far later down the road. But what we do have coming up is the story of Noah's Ark. And so before we dive far into that for the next episode, sort of a preface, I kind of wanted to. You've mentioned this ancient alien thing a couple of times. What have you heard anything to the notion of, along with this ancient aliens thing, with Noah's Ark? Have you heard any conspiracy theories around Noah's Ark?
I haven't heard any conspiracy theories around Noah's Ark. I do know that multiple world histories from around the world point to a flood at roughly the same time, and there is a layer of silt, supposedly, that marks at about the same period of time there being a huge flood that we really can't figure out and doesn't match a whole lot of global history as we know it. Now but I don't know how long the alien lines that is, but it makes sense to me.
Well, so for the record, neither conspiracy denounces the flood. One that I have heard is that the Pyramid of Giza is Noah's Ark.
A stone ship?
I think just a massive pyramid. Or that maybe it's an allegory. Again, I've just heard this offhand. That it could have been essentially verbal clickbait for all I know, but it's something I want to look into. The other one was the sort of concept that Noah's Ark was more of a database. it would play into your Ancient Aliens thing, where basically it was just DNA from each animal to then repopulate the earth after the flood, and that there were sort of our godly engineers were there to help with that. That it was, again,
I like that one better.
Yeah. Interesting. It's fun to play out some of these, follow the research, and see what people bring to the table.
Heck yeah, I like that a lot.
So that's some of what I'll be discussing with. And this is finally we get to a point. Finally, we're only 4 chapters in. Finally, we get to a point where they elaborate a little bit more. Where this next chapter is not just. We're not going to have the whole Noah's Ark story wrapped up in just one chapter.
Oh, okay. So basically, what you're telling me is 1 through 4 have been built up to the ark. Is that correct?
Well, what I'm saying is like 5, 6, and 7 are all going to be about Noah and the ark. We're not. 5 isn't just going to be the ark. We finally have gotten past a 1-chapter storyline.
Okay, I got you.
Which will be good to look for, and maybe we'll probably batch those episodes in some way. This will be interesting. I look forward to it. I don't know what else you have for the kind folks at home.
I really would like for them to go to our blog, if you haven't heard of it, Kevin, which I hope you have. You made it. It's Bad Dinner Guests with an S at the end, .blogspot.com. Definitely check us out on Twitter at Bad Dinner Guests. Tweet at us that we're bigots, or if you have a question, we like both. That's really all I got for him tonight. Maybe we'll have a second episode up tonight. We don't know, but look for us. Thanks.